What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick, and welcome to another episode of Short Circuit Sports, the channel that brings you weekly, lightning-fast coverage of the sports world from a fan's perspective. I cover anything and everything from breaking news to scores and predictions with analysis. Just a quick side note, I do normally post my episodes on Tuesdays. I was unable to get an episode out yesterday due to some unforeseen circumstances. But to make up for that, I got a really good show ready for you guys today. So without further introduction, let's get into it. We got the MLB League Championship Series along with some Los Angeles Dodgers breaking news. We got some Week 6 NFL recap along with my top 5 games to look for and watch in Week 7 in the NFL along with their predictions. And both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, of all the teams, managed to get some upgrades. So it's really scary. It's scary season for the rest of the NFL. So without further ado, stay plugged in, stay charged up, and let's get into it. Currently in the American League Championship Series, the Texas Rangers lead the Houston Astros 2-0. The Rangers have been in complete control of the series, winning both of the first 2 games in Houston, with a chance to sweep the Astros at home, if they win the next 2, that is. Rangers shortstop Corey Seager is currently leading the offensive charge with a postseason batting average of almost 400, and including 7 runs scored, while the Rangers pitching staff has really limited the Astros offense all series long. It remains to be seen if Houston can regain some momentum on the road, and at the time of this recording, they are beating the Texas Rangers 8-5 in the 9th inning. But if the Rangers can come back and win this game and make it a 3-0 series, the Astros would practically have to do the impossible to even have a chance at surviving this series. My prediction, I think that Texas got hot at the right time, and it might just be too much for the Astros to handle. But I would be foolish to count Houston out just yet. Speaking of getting hot at the right time, last night the Philadelphia Phillies took a 2-0 lead in the National League Championship Series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It was an absolute blowout. The Phillies destroyed Arizona 10-0. There really is no wrong place to start with this Phillies team, as it seems like all of their stars have managed to get hot at the right time. Kyle Schwarber had 2 home runs last night. Shortstop Trey Turner had 1. And the Phillies pitching has been nothing short of lights out against Arizona's young talent. And that's not even mentioning the possible postseason MVP, Bryce Harper, who has been absolutely electric so far. It really is hard to explain how this Phillies team went from being afterthoughts in the regular season to the hottest team in baseball in the playoffs. If they can take Game 3 tomorrow night in Arizona and move to 3-0, I really don't see what's keeping them from running the table and moving on to the World Series, where I am almost certain they will be favorites against any of the 2 Houston or Texas teams that make it there. Personally, I have the Philadelphia Phillies running the gauntlet. In other baseball news, the Los Angeles Dodgers team president of baseball operations, Andrew Friedman, has announced on Monday that manager Dave Roberts would be returning for the 2024 season. This announcement comes about a week after the Dodgers were swept by division rival Arizona, and it was the first time since 2006 that they failed to even win one playoff game in a postseason appearance. The Dodgers front office seems to think that Roberts did everything in his power to help the team win. That being said, this is the second time in 2 years that the Dodgers won over 100 regular season games and they couldn't even make it past a division rival in the first round. And in the two series in 2 years that they played a division rival, they have won only once, and it was last year against the San Diego Padres. Andrew Friedman was quoted as saying, quote, "Our goal was to win 11 games in October, and we didn't win one." He also made it clear that the postseason failure was not on any one person, but on the organization as a whole. Personally speaking, while I understand that Roberts has been successful while he has been the Dodgers manager, he just led the Dodgers to back-to-back playoff embarrassments after winning 100 games in the regular season both years. And before anyone says that the Dodgers won the championship in 2020, it was in a playoff bubble. It was not a normal playoff environment by any stretch. And while I understand those particular circumstances were difficult in their own right, the way the Dodgers have played in the postseason since that title run tells me that under normal playoff circumstances, they're pretenders. And while it is not Roberts' fault that his two best players completely disappeared when the team needed them the most, and it isn't his fault that he didn't have a healthy pitching staff, and he couldn't have predicted that longtime veteran pitcher Clayton Kershaw, future Hall of Famer, would completely disappear in Game 1 and have one of his worst playoff outings ever. It is on Roberts to show leadership in tough situations, and the way this team has performed in the last two seasons, in the postseason, I don't have a lot of confidence that he can do that. Like I mentioned, he couldn't have predicted that stars Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman would combine for, I think it was a 1 for 21 postseason batting. And that one was like I think it was an infield hit or an error. So it probably shouldn't have counted anyway. So it is on the players just as much as it is on Roberts. But personally, I do think that someone has to answer for these last two playoff embarrassments. And I really do think it should have been Roberts. And from what it looks like, his contract ends after the 2025 season. It remains to be seen if he'll make it past 2024. Moving on, we got some NFL Week 6 recap. The first game on my picks list that I got wrong was the Eagles at the New York Jets. While I knew that the New York Jets had a stellar defense, forcing Jalen Hurts to throw 3 interceptions was not something that I was anticipating would happen. They got pressure on him all game long and ended up sacking him twice and just made him look really uncomfortable all game long. The second game that I got wrong was the Cowboys at the Los Angeles Chargers. I personally thought that the Cowboys would be demoralized after the thrashing they got a week prior against the San Francisco 49ers. And I do believe that there was a stat that said in the last couple of seasons that teams were 1 and I think 16 in games after they played the San Francisco 49ers. So I thought that stat was working against the Cowboys. And coming off of a bye week, I thought the Chargers would be more prepared for the Cowboys. As it turns out, none of the things that I just mentioned mattered. Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott had a relatively efficient game through the air, while also managing to lead the Cowboys in rushing. On the other side, Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert was not so efficient, occasionally missing wide-open receivers and throwing a late interception to seal the win for the Cowboys. I also can't help but think that this game was decided by penalties as well. both teams combined for 20 penalties on the night. Whenever one team would seemingly gain momentum, there always seemed to be a yellow flag on the field to cut it short. And while the Cowboys did have more penalties than the Chargers, the ratio was the Cowboys had 11 and the Chargers had 9. It did seem like the Chargers received their penalties in more crucial spots. So you could technically say that the Cowboys won this game on discipline, and were more efficient when they needed to be. That being said, I was correct about the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Seattle Seahawks, but not in the way that they did. Personally, I originally thought that it would be the Joe Burrow-Jamar Chase connection that would be the deciding factor. However, it was Cincinnati's defense that forced Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith to really be uncomfortable all game that ultimately decided the outcome of this game. The Bengals defense ended up sacking Geno Smith 4 times on the day while also picking him off twice. The second game I was correct about was the Los Angeles Rams beating the Arizona Cardinals. I did originally think that this game was going to be a lot closer. However, the Rams defense really stepped up in this game and completely limited Arizona quarterback Josh Dobbs. On offense, Rams running back Karen Williams ran completely wild on the Arizona defense, rushing for over 150 yards and a touchdown. On top of that, star wide receiver Cooper Kupp showed that he is indeed back and healthy, totaling 7 receptions for 148 yards and a touchdown. And lastly, the last game I was correct about was the Detroit Lions beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The story of this game was Lions quarterback Jared Goff, who threw for over 350 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. His favorite target, Amon-Ra St. Brown, also had a great game, grabbing 12 receptions for over 120 yards and also a touchdown. Tampa Bay's defense really couldn't slow the Lions offense down if they tried, and combine that with the Detroit defense keeping the Buccaneers offense in check, it was a really long day for Tampa. Now, before we move on to my picks for the week, we do have 2 significant transactions that occurred in the NFL. First off, the Philadelphia Eagles have officially signed former All-Pro wide receiver Julio Jones to a 1-year contract. Jones last played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2022, where he logged just 24 receptions for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Eagles believe that they can still get some production out of the veteran receiver. It remains to be seen if he has a lot of juice left. And it is uncertain if he will play this weekend on Sunday Night Football when the Eagles play the Dolphins. But if the Eagles can get something out of Julio Jones, and that is at all reminiscent of what we have seen in years past, I think the Eagles have managed to get even better on offense, which is a very scary thought. The second transaction that happened today was that the Kansas City Chiefs made a trade with the New York Jets to acquire wide receiver Mecole Hardman and a 2025 7th round pick. And in return, the Jets would receive a 2025 6th round pick. Now, for those of you wondering why Mecole Hardman and the Kansas City Chiefs in the same sentence sounds really familiar, it's because it is. Hardman is a former 2nd round pick of the Chiefs who left after last season to sign with the Jets. And now it only took 6 games to send him back to where he was drafted. Personally, I do think that this is a win for the Kansas City Chiefs. They get another speedy receiver that knows the system and has played with Patrick Mahomes before. And it really looks like Mahomes just got another downfield threat that knows what it's like to play with him. And I think that we're in for another scary season for Mahomes. And he has picked it up in the last couple of weeks. And adding Hardman to the mix, that Great. Moving on to the week 7 version of Nick's picks. We did go 3-2 on the week 6 version. So decent, not great. But we are 15-6 on the season. So overall, not too bad. The first game on my list, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers going to the Los Angeles Rams and winning 24-20. My reasoning for this pick is that while the Rams have looked impressive on offense, they are going into this game injured. Aforementioned running back Kieran Williams is going to be out for this game as he got hurt last week. Combine that with an already talented Steelers defense who is also coming off of a bye. I think that they just have too much talent on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to be well rested. I think they have just enough to squeeze out a win in LA. The second game on my list, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars going into New Orleans and winning 20-17. I do think that this game is going to be incredibly close. The Saints have a top 5 defense in the league, and Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence has a sprained left knee that he is determined to play through. This is also a Thursday night game, so tomorrow night. So he will not have a whole lot of time to rest that knee. However, the reason I have Jacksonville winning a really close game is mostly due to the dysfunction of the New Orleans Saints offense. They have not scored points when they needed to. And I think that the Jaguars are just too good on both sides of the ball, even with an injured quarterback. I think that they can squeeze out a win here in New Orleans. Game 3, I have another road win as I have the Detroit Lions going into Baltimore and winning 28-24. The Lions, as of recently, have been one of the few teams really to put it together on both sides of the ball. And they are riding high on a 4-game win streak. They have also looked really impressive and are currently undefeated on the road. So very crucial stat there. While I do think that with Lamar Jackson being healthy, the Ravens can make this close. They do have some dysfunction problems on offense with Lamar Jackson connecting with some of his receivers, especially putting up points when they need to. And considering the Lions have one of the league's most talented defenses, I do think the Ravens will have some problems here, and any mistakes they do make, I do think that the Lions can capitalize on them. For game number 4, I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Los Angeles Chargers at home 31-24. The Chiefs are currently riding a 5-game win streak. And while Patrick Mahomes hasn't exactly played at an MVP level just yet, he seems to be finding his stride at the right time, and the Chiefs are doing enough to win games. And I do think that they can do this here. On the other side, the Chargers are coming off of a tough loss in primetime, and it just seems they're exhibiting a lot of the dysfunction that has plagued them over the last couple of years. Whenever these two teams play, it always seems to come down to the wire, and as of the last couple of seasons, in the final minutes, the Patrick Mahomes-Travis Kelce connection really seems to come alive and torment the Chargers defense. I do think Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert has a much better game and performance this week than he did on Monday night against the Cowboys. However, I do think that it will ultimately be wasted in another Chargers poor defensive effort. And it will just be another footnote in what has already been a dysfunctional run as head coach for Brandon Staley. And his hot seat after this particular game, I can see it getting a whole lot hotter. At my number 1 game, my number 5 game, but my number 1 game of the week to watch is the Miami Dolphins at the Philadelphia Eagles. I do have the Philadelphia Eagles pulling this one out at home, 31-28. The reason I have the Eagles winning is because the Dolphins do not have the respected defense that the New York Jets have, that gave the Eagles fits this past week. And I don't think the Dolphins have enough to really impact the rushing effort that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense have. Not to mention that Philadelphia will be looking for a redemption after their poor offensive showing against the Jets. And as of all of the games that are on this list, I do think that this game has the potential to be a shootout. And if you're comparing the defenses between these two, the Eagles have the better of the two. And I think that they will have just enough to slow down, not stop, but slow down the potent Miami Dolphins offense. I'm not taking anything away from Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and that really high speed offense that Miami has. I just think the Eagles have just enough to slip by this week. So that is all of the time that we have left for this particular episode of Short Circuit Sports. If you agree, disagree, or want to hear more about something, please let me know down in the comments, and I will be sure to address them either in the comments or in future episodes. Also, if you like this episode and you want to hear more and you want to be able to listen to future episodes that I put out, please subscribe and turn on those notifications, and I will talk to you next time. So without further interruption, stay plugged in, stay charged up, and I will talk to you guys next time on the next episode of Short Circuit Sports. Have a good one.